Chapter 26, Sword Saint, Cheon Seong 2. Throb, throb, throb. A heavy pressure that could be felt throughout the body. The overburdened blood vessels screamed in protest. Jinhyuk frowned. As expected. So this is the aftermath of using an SS-ranked combat system unique ability. Until now, he hadn't really used any combat abilities apart from those with the element of fire, so it didn't feel real. But now, it was clear just how important the absolute amount of magic power was. If he were to use Teresa's unique ability later on, no matter how much magic power he had, it would never be enough. There was another reason to fully absorb the frozen tears. I need to finish this as quickly as possible. If he dragged this out, his body wouldn't hold up. Jinhyuk gathered all the remaining magic power he had. Flurries. A black aura flickered at the tip of his sword. The sword aura used by the sword demon. What he manifested was far from even a tenth of its original power. But this was enough. More than enough. Clench. Cheon Seong's teeth bit deeply into his lip. Blood seeped out, but he didn't feel any pain. I absolutely cannot accept this. He had worked himself to death. Both in the game and outside of it. But no matter how much he trained and worked hard, he couldn't beat the guy in front of him. The outcome was always the same, a grayscale screen. Red letters spelling "You die," telling the story of all his efforts until now. 1 year, 2 years. He had faced death message so many times he couldn't even count, as many seasons had passed. Only to give up on everything and forget the years that had followed. That's when it happened. The Tower of Trials became reality. This was it. If only he could start everything all over again. There was absolutely no reason for him to be outclassed by that guy. The gap between them was simply because the other person started the game earlier and monopolized all the good opportunities. But despite being confident he had done his utmost preparation. Why do you only bring me despair once again? Cheon Seong roared fiercely. Chasing spirit sword dance. Dozens of split sword auras. First form. Physical blue magical power began to overflow. Chasing spirit demon sword. Absolutely, absolutely. I cannot accept this. Cheon Seong swung his sword as he shouted. Just like the claws of a beast. Dozens of sword auras swallowed Jinhyuk. Boom, 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 boom. The ground cut away like a sheet of paper. Overwhelming power. Even the mere sword wind forced an enormous physical force. Where the storm passed, nothing was left but a cloud of dust. Ha, ha, ha. Cheon Seong gasped for breath. His chest heaved violently. He had used his ultimate technique. This should have definitely worked. But what's with this skill producing so much dust? From within the whirl of dust. Step. Jinhyuk, unharmed, revealed himself. He hadn't blocked it, nor had he counterattacked. He simply dodged. Did you read all my sword moves? Over dozens of them. Such a thing, impossible. Even he who swung the sword couldn't remember all the moves. The chasing spirit sword isn't bad, but I've fought guys who use stuff that's faster and stronger than this. Not here on the first floor, but much higher up. He had once faced one of the absolute rulers of the tower. It's funny, there is no higher martial arts than chasing spirit sword other than those used by the Demon King. How did you know? Have you fought with that guy? Until the very end. Cheon Seong drew his sword horizontally. At the same time, from above to below, Jinhyuk thrust his dagger downward. Clang. The paths of their swords collided at one point. Crack. The clash of energy and sword aura. Blue sparks scattered in all directions. However, the balance did not last long. The fully manifested black moon devoured Cheon Seong's sword aura instantly. Ku. A heavy groan escaped from Cheon Seong's lips. Despite pouring in magic power almost to the point of frenzy, it wasn't enough. It wasn't a problem of magic power, nor was it a problem of skill or unique ability. The difference between them was merely how much they enjoyed and loved this world. In the end, boom, Cheon Seong knelt on one knee. Cough. Crash. Following the blow, he dropped the iron sword he'd been holding. The sword that spun in the air lodged itself in the ground. The battle was finally decided. Looks like I won again this time. I'm not exactly sure how many wins this makes. He had long since lost count of their battles. Even by a conservative estimate, it had to be in the doubles digits. 13, 8, 138 times. It had already reached that many. Next time it'll be 139. Of course, that's if you're under the delusion that you have a chance of winning. Jinhyuk's words made Cheon Yuseong narrow his eyes. Next time you say. Yeah, next time. Oh, and if you could come back a bit stronger than now, that'd be great. To use the copy ability on the same target again, a 90-day interval was required. And if he knows Cheon Yuseong, the next time they meet, he'll have even more useful abilities. It's like making a buffet come right to me. Why go through the trouble of searching and copying elsewhere? There's a guy right in front of him frantic to get stronger. Such a guy should be grown slowly and savored when harvested. Next time on the 15th floor, I'll even acquire that skill. Thinking about copying the opportunities available only to dedicated practitioners, a natural smile crept to his lips. Of course. Just kill me, spare me your pity. From Cheon Yuseong's perspective, such words could only be perceived as cheap pity. Certainly. There probably isn't another person in the world who would refuse salvation like him. Can't be helped. Jinhyuk sighed softly and retrieved his dagger. As you know, the Tower of Trials is no easy place. Even rankers can die if they lower their guard for a moment, right? There was no point in talking about the difficulty of the tower, it would only be a waste of breath. Especially now, when the variable of people had been added, the difficulty had only increased compared to the past. That's why we need as many strong players as possible, especially ones who are particularly strong like yourself. Particularly strong, player. Cheon Yuseong's eyes shook faintly. An odd gaze. Like a troublemaking son of a count, who had been ignored all his life, finally receiving recognition from his father. He's taken the bait. Now's the time. Jinhyuk reached out a hand towards Cheon Yuseong. At the same time, he triggered another skill almost imperceptibly. LV2 feet sympathy is activated. Hostility from the target towards you has eased. Affection has slightly increased. Cheon Yuseong stood up, grabbing Jinhyuk's hand and dusting himself off. You're not wrong, but remember this, next time the outcome will be completely different. Of course, it would be presumptuous otherwise. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Jinhyuk smirked. But then, Cheon Yuseong, about to dispel the barrier, paused. Come to think of it, I still don't know your name. There's no need for formal introductions when we're not that familiar, right? Hey, you, look here, and such. Pronouns exist for these situations, don't they? Fine, I understand, then I will call you as I have been. Huh, something felt off. Don't tell me. Wait, don't use that to call me. Jinhyuk quickly spoke up. I'll tell you my name. Please. Stop it, you fool. Timur the Colonel. Ah, I said not to call me that. Jinhyuk pressed his fingers to his temples. At the same time, he remembered painfully well the impact a nickname chosen in jest could have. Painfully well, indeed. As Jinhyuk was finishing the battle with Cheon Yuseong and was busy collecting items, another abnormality occurred elsewhere in the ruins. A raiding party was taking a break after a battle. Cheon Wahung, didn't you say the monsters up ahead were all cleared out? A mage who used detection magic tilted their head in confusion. Yeah, Kwang-il and his team took care of it an hour ago. Really? Why? Well, I'm detecting some magical reactions on the magic radar. Looks like one or two creatures. That can't be. Kwang-il supposedly cleared out all the specters, he checked 3 times just to be sure. Let me see. Song Cheonwa approached the man. Indeed. A translucent screen displayed a red dot indicating a magical reaction. Damn it, did Kwang-il screw up and do a sloppy job? Sometimes, this happens. Especially with ghost monsters like specters, a couple sometimes get missed. But just then, wait, stop, it's moving. What do you mean, moving? These guys, if they aren't aggroed, they just stay in one place. Seriously, and it's fast, it's heading this way. At that moment, groom, sound of footsteps nearby. Footsteps that should be impossible for a spectral creature. Song Cheonwa's pupils quaked. And it's a big if. If it wasn't just a miscount of specters and instead if something new had appeared. And it had managed to sneak up close without anyone noticing until now. Chills ran up his spine. Wake up everyone who's resting, now. Everyone. Yes, everyone. Song Cheonwa shouted. Shortly after, a 3-meter-tall golem appeared before the raid party. A massive body made of rock. However, what caught their attention more than the golem was the white-haired man sitting on its shoulder. Greetings, humans. His melodious voice echoed softly. The man smiled at Song Qianhua. It talks. Damn, it had to be an intelligent monster. That's not just any golem, it's an iron golem. It won't even scratch from normal weapons. The players murmured among themselves. Intelligent monsters, especially those with humanoid forms, were notoriously tricky to deal with and generally avoided by players. Are you the boss monster of these ruins? Song Qianhua asked, shielding his body with a large shield. Ha, my name is Bellis. I am but one of the blood clans serving the master of these ruins. Blood clan, if you're from the blood clan. Song Qianhua's pupils dilated sharply. You can't mean. Among the monstrously human-looking monsters with that title, only one was renowned. Vampire. If that was true, then. Swallow. A dry gulp traveled down Song Qianhua's throat. The true ancestor. One of the most formidable beings in the Tower of Trials. This was the monster's territory. We're outmatched. It was beyond imagination that a creature of such might would be on the first floor. Even if they had Teresa or another secret weapon ready, it didn't matter against a true ancestor. At least level 500 or higher. At this point, no unique abilities or sacred relics could take down such a creature. Song Qianhua spoke with difficulty. What is it that you want? You wouldn't have come here without a reason, right? Ho, you are quite perceptive, sir. As you said, I am here for a reason. I have a proposition to make. Bellis jumped off the golem's shoulder. Thud. He landed with a lightness that seemed to defy gravity. What's the proposition? You have a choice to make. Pick one of the two options. The first, all of you here come with me quietly. Or, red magic power began to condense in Bellis's palm. As an example, shall half of you die first before being dragged away like cattle?
Chapter 27, The Master of the Corrupted Corridor 1. How laughable. If Jinzhou himself had come, it might have been a different story, but you think a single subordinate can take us all on? Song Qianhua growled toward Bellis. The damage would be significant, but given the situation, they can just abandon the raid and get through the Guardians. There's no need to fight Jinzhou directly. In Song Qianhua's view, it's absurd to think they'd foolishly follow the enemy deep into their stronghold. Do you truly believe I alone am not enough? Of course. We've already hunted down monsters around level 50 several times. Jinzhou's normal level was over 500, but his subordinates were much lower. Maybe 50 or at most in their 60s. They're strong, but a well-positioned assault party could certainly handle them. This is confirmed information from the Trial Tower's admin board, this can't be wrong. Song Qianhua positioned himself confidently. Ha ha, as expected, I can never understand why humans are so obsessed with levels. Bellis burst out a cheerful sneer. And at that moment, sparks of red ignited. The atmosphere shifted drastically. Bellis's smile vanished. You dare mock me, a mere inferior human. Bellis has activated LV-11 feet blood bind. That's when blood sprayed everywhere. Like thousands of tiny fist-sized droplets, they quickly swallowed up the tanks. Cough. What the heck is this? Dispel, quickly. The tanks yelled in panic. Despite wearing magic-resistant gear, their bodies wouldn't move. But just as a dispel was about to be used, Bellis clenched his outstretched hand. Pop, crunch, crack, scream, ah. An immense pressure crumpled the armor. There was no need to check what happened to the person inside. Amidst the gushing blood fountains. You fools, are you just going to stand there and wait to die? Move now. Song Qianhua commanded an attack. Damn it, attack. Kill him before the next spell is cast. Melee attackers leapt into action, forming an enclosure and striking from all angles. Most were blocked by a shield of blood, but... Whish, thunk. A few swords and spears managed to pierce through Bellis's body. Blood dripped down the blade, but that was all. Bellis didn't even frown. It's disappointing. You should at least have coated your weapons in holy power. That was the end. Pieshish. The attackers surrounding Bellis were reduced to mere sprays of blood. Shattered remnants fell to the floor. Their attacks couldn't penetrate, while the enemies were overwhelmingly powerful. How can a subordinate be so powerful? Song Qianhua muttered in disbelief. Then a thought struck him. If a single subordinate is this powerful, just how strong is Jinzhou, who leads them? It was unimaginable. Even if he gathered the highest-ranking players attacking the third floor's boss, he couldn't guarantee success in the raid. Song Qianhua let his shield hang low. He needed to survive. Only then could he bring word of this to the outside. Are you surrendering? Before that, let me ask one thing. Ask your question. Why do you want to take us with you? To Bellis, wiping out their assault team didn't seem difficult. He could do it within an hour if he wished. So why bother with such an inconvenience? You'll be used as bait. Bait. Our master took interest in a human who happens to know how to handle holy power. So we decided to use a more convenient method. This had to be about Teresa. It was her they were after. The situation was dire, but Song Qianhua quickly searched for possibilities. If Teresa, the Holy Knight, would join forces, perhaps there might be a chance. Not to fight and win, but to find a gap to escape alive. He didn't ponder long. All right, I'll go with you. Song Qianhua nodded, then pierced his palm with his thumb. The emergency summon scroll is activated. Target specified, Teresa de Laurencia. A blue status window flashed. Now all he could do was hope. Pray that the whole situation would be conveyed intact to her. Asterisk. Jin Zhou. True ancestor. Alice von Ataraxia. She was one of the strongest in the trial tower. Well, she was. Having broken a taboo of her clan, she fell from grace and consequently was exiled to the lowest level of the tower. Hence the name of the ruins, Corridor of the Corrupted. It was the residence of Alice and the few subordinates who followed her, located deep in the abyss. It's an untold story. Jin Hyuk slowly opened his eyes. Before him was a status window. An invitation, in the form of a personal quest that had just arrived. The master of the corridor invites you. If you wish to save your raid team and the porters, please come to the innermost room. Difficulty, none. Reward, an audience with the master of the corridor. Details, if you accept the quest, all monsters and traps up to the final room will cease to function. What will you do? Teresa glanced at Jin Hyuk. He was bound by contract to help, but Jin Hyuk, who had come as a non-combatant porter, didn't have to. He could just wait it out, and once the rescue team breached the Guardians, he'd be free to leave. Jin Hyuk shrugged. Well, what should I do? I don't really want to take any risks, but if you desperately ask, I might consider going with you. If I ask, what kind of display of sincerity do I need to show? I hear your fan base is quite solid. Jin Hyuk formed a circle with his fingers, knowing full well what he implied. Give me a 5-figure sum in coins, and perhaps my motivation might just spring to life. That's a nasty hobby. Aren't you here for the boss anyway? Qian Yu Sung interjected, clearly disgusted. Ah, that's one thing, this is another. I'm just asking Teresa's opinion, and you're leaving the ruins anyway, right? Yes, my purpose here has already failed. Then go your way quietly and don't sprinkle chili powder on a friendly deal. Jin Hyuk waved his hand dismissively as Qian Yu Sung made a face of contempt. Sometimes I wonder whether one needs to act so ruthlessly to become strong. That little wretch. Humph, let's just drop it. No point in arguing with him, there's no benefit. And he wasn't exactly wrong either. With a sigh, Jin Hyuk turned to Teresa. So, what will you do? If I give you coins, will you come and rescue the raid team with me? I can't promise much, but I will ensure that 10,000 coins won't be regretted. 10,000 coins was a ludicrous amount for anyone who overheard. At this point, only a few people would have even gathered that many, but it was a price worth paying to save an entire raid team. The only thing that troubled her was, aren't you scared, Jin Hyuk? Facing a supreme being that's not just an ordinary raid boss. Death here means nothing, coins, holy relics, all irrelevant. Yet. Well, should I be scared? Jin Hyuk smiled enigmatically, almost as if he knew how things would turn out. Teresa bit her lip. His confidence bordered on arrogance, but why did it feel so exciting? Her heart beat rapidly. She had to choose, follow probability or trust her instincts. Just as she hesitated, Qian Yu Sung spoke. I'll be on my way, breaking through the Guardians will take some time. Oh, one more thing. He paused as if he had just remembered something. If deciding is too hard, take this as advice. He glared at Jin Hyuk with a mixture of annoyance and disdain. I don't know if he can beat the true ancestor. Being a bystander, the outcome was uncertain. But, as someone who had crossed swords with Jin Hyuk countless times and knew him best, he could affirm one thing. If he can't overcome her, then no player in existing trial tower can defeat the true ancestor. The past sword saint, and the future one acknowledged it. The most outstanding player in the trial tower, and if you could join forces with him for 10,000 coins. That was no bad deal. That was a trivial monologue. Of course, the decision isn't mine to make. Cheon Yu-sung walked away with his words hanging in the air. Thank you for the advice. Teresa nodded in appreciation and then bowed slightly toward Jin Hyuk. Let's make a contract. Please fight alongside me. Asterisk. You've accepted the quest. 2 halves. The monsters fall into a deep sleep. The traps have ceased operation. Thud, thud, thud. All around the ruins, the traps that had guarded it like a fortress, and the monsters, fell silent. The journey ahead became incredibly smooth, compressing what should have been weeks of travel into just hours. Your magic has increased by +1 too. Jin Hyuk absorbed, frozen tears, little by little, thawed by Teresa. Frozen tears. Difficulty to acquire, SS. Amount of magical power absorbable, 100. Details. An essence obtainable on the 7th floor, end of the world of the Trial Tower. Absorbing it significantly increases your magical power, but without a specific refining process, it can cause fatal injuries to the user. Quite a treasure indeed. A whopping 12 stat points. As if he had gained 4 levels. Jin Hyuk felt his magical power surge distinctly. Activating, Tomb of Swords used to cause his veins to feel like they were tearing apart. Now, the pain was much less. This was why everyone sought out a larger mana pool. If I can absorb all 100. He could freely use Cheon Yu-sung's, Tomb of Swords, Teresa's, Blessing of the Stars, and other skills from the rankers. Since Teresa's thawing is capped at 12 stats, I'll make do with that for now. 12, 18, 30, 40. A 4-stage process. Depending on the skill used to mitigate the cold, the possible absorption varied. Reaching the next stage would require an individual with higher level skills or special items. Well, I'll worry about that later. For now, he must focus on the immediate challenge. Jin Hyuk retraced the memories of the past in his mind. Countless challenges and failures, and at the end, the only way out he had found. Indeed, there seemed to be only one way to defeat Alice. A thorny path, no doubt, but one he had to travel. Not much further now. The corridor began to widen. End of chapter 27. Chapter 28. The Master of the Corrupted Corridor. 2. How long had they walked? Eventually, a massive door appeared before the two of them. Decorations reminiscent of ancient Greece. But what was concerning wasn't the appearance. This is. Jin Hyuk frowned. ZZZT. ZZZT. Tremendous magical power. Despite the presence of a door that blocked magic, this pressure was immense. Glancing to the side, Teresa's face had turned ashen. We have to face this monster, just the two of us. Her voice trembled thinly. It was unsurprising. The magic piercing their skins crushed any will to fight. There's no need to be scared. We knew the enemy was strong all along, didn't we? But, well, moreover, battles don't always end in the stronger side's victory. Strategies and tactics were devised to overcome inferior power. If every contest was decided by the magnitude of magic, I never would have reached the last floor of the tower. Do you have a plan? Just one thing. No matter what happens in there, trust me. Jin Hyuk uttered briefly, pulling out a dagger. What does that mean? Teresa asked, but Jin Hyuk didn't answer. Instead, creak, he reached out and opened the door. Asterisk. A splendid view unfolded with dazzling light. Floors and pillars made of gold. In a place where red drapes cascaded, an imposing throne stood. Finally, you've arrived. I've grown weary from waiting. The lounging woman smiled. Jin Hyuk directly faced his opponent. Stunning, no matter how many times I see it. Long silver hair down to her waist and red eyes. A body so enchanting it nearly oozed decadence. Indeed, the very image of an immortal vampire. And she was terrifying enough on her own, but there were 12 of her kin lined up beside her, each one looking formidable. Are the people safe? Haven't laid a finger on them, so no need to worry. Elise gestured lightly. Then, LV. Dimensional block will be lifted. Closing square bracket. The veil was lifted, revealing people who had been taken as captives. MMPH. MFHH. Muffled and blindfolded, they were bound and silenced. Everyone from the assault squad, including Song Chunhwa, to Kim, the team lead, and the porters seemed mostly unharmed. Thankfully. Opening square bracket. LV 2 feet Eyes of Truth, activates. Closing square bracket. Scanning the group with Eyes of Truth, Jin Hyuk checked for names and statuses in the dozens of status windows that flickered past. Despite the severe drain of magic, he pushed himself to confirm everyone's condition. He had to find that guy. At that moment, now that you've seen the hostages are safe, I guess it's my turn to ask questions. Elise, who had been waiting, spoke up. Her question was not just an inquiry, but an implicit order to answer. To refuse meant to kill all the humans in this palace. Ask away. I am curious about the reasons behind this elaborate setup myself. I invited you here because of the scent emanating from you. Scent. It wasn't the smell of sweat. If it was a scent that could excite a vampire, could it be? Yes. The sweet fragrance of blood that flows from you. A scent so delectable it aroused me, far more exquisite than any ordinary human could offer. Damn. There were plenty of Type B men strewn across the streets, so why this sudden craving for delectable blood? Jinhyuk pressed his temples with a fingertip. You seem quite troubled. Well, wouldn't anyone be, with plans to be made into a mummy by having their blood sucked out? It was even less comforting if put that way. Essentially, she was saying, I'll keep you alive to jab a straw into your neck whenever I'm hungry. I appreciate the offer, but I have no desire to live as a vampire's deluxe packed lunch. Find someone else with that kind of twisted hobby. Surely someone out there would enjoy it. I'm afraid you've been given no choice in the matter. I'm aware. I wasn't suggesting that it would be up to you, let's offer something else in exchange for blood. Oh, did the audacious suggestion pique her interest? Elisa's smile deepened a shade. But it was only for a moment. To us, there's nothing more precious than delicious blood. Whatever you propose, my decision will remain unchanged. What if that, something else, were, freedom? Ellipsis exclamation mark. Question mark. Elisa's expression changed at Jinhyuk's words. At the same time, how dare you, to utter that word here? I'll tear you apart, human. The vampires lined on either side of Elise erupted in anger. Menace seeped through their words. Understandably so. For them, freedom meant much more than a mere word. Years of exile in an endless darkness. The beauty of the stars and moon in the night sky, the soft caress of the wind, and the freshness of grass, all had long been lost to them. You, be prepared to take responsibility for the words you've just uttered. If I couldn't take responsibility, I wouldn't have come here in the first place. From his pocket, Jinhyuk produced a mask. It was black with geometric patterns, slightly different in design from the one he used in the labyrinth. The runic characters etched with magic on the right cheekbone were prominent. That's, Elisa's eyes narrowed. She recognized it, then. The significance of this mask. Jinhyuk gracefully bowed deep. Enough bait had been cast, it was time to bring up the main topic. My name is Kong Jinhyuk. To brainwash. On behalf of the demons in the tower, the role he had to play now. And, I will now free you from this place. The character's nature and objectives he had to assume. Demons, a term for those who turned against humanity for money, vengeance, or personal beliefs. Demons hindered players from climbing the tower and sometimes even conspired with the monsters in labyrinths and relics. Just like now, since the arrival of the Tower of Trials in reality. The numerous misdeeds, including the coin farm, have been hotly discussed in various media, making demons' notoriety on par with major guilds. I've heard of them too. But, you're one of them. Elise looked incredulous. Well, the mask alone couldn't inspire confidence. If so, just give her a bit more to go on. Information only a demon would know. I'm already in touch with the temple on the 27th floor of the tower. They've informed me of everything, including your presence, Elise, and the means to deceive the seal encompassing the entire relic. Smoothly flowing words, complemented by an unaffected expression. Indeed, if you know about the temple, it's not mere bluffing. Then, do you trust me? Number. Elise shook her head. You know too much about us. Plus, you claim you can solve problems we've deemed impossible at once. Lovely roses have thorns, after all. Above all, I can't easily trust someone who's all talk. Rejection. If it were just a request or suggestion, they could have parted ways without fuss. But here, rejection meant death. Elise slowly raised her hand. The vampires stood ready to act. Upon the signal, they would capture Jinhyuk and kill Teresa. This is harder than expected. The old vampire isn't frivolous, I see. If I prove it's not just talk, would you believe me then? Elise stopped her hand mid-air. To dismiss our proposal and the temples out of mere suspicion would be burdensome, wouldn't it? I'll do anything. Just give me a chance. Fine. If you truly are a demon, Elisa's gaze drifted past Jinhyuk. Killing these humans wouldn't bother you. As she spoke, a blue status window appeared. Sudden quest, kill your companions. Reward, Elise's trust. Failure, you won't be able to convince Elise with any words. Kill or be killed, only two choices. And Jinhyuk understood. Firmly gripped the dagger without a hint of hesitation, feeling the thrill of everything going according to plan. Asterisk, what are you doing right now? Teresa shouted, her face marred with betrayal and anger. From their first meeting, he had been an enigmatic man. Despite being a porter, he showed overwhelming martial prowess. His intriguing and inexplicably warm demeanor. That's why she clung to his words to trust him, enduring through thick and thin. However, the moment she saw him nod without hesitation to the command to kill a companion, doubt turned to certainty. That his true identity was one of the demons. Were you planning to use me all along? Isn't it pointless to ask such a question now? Jinhyuk extended the dagger, as if no conversation was necessary. I won't go down easily. Teresa covered herself with her shield, opting for a defensive stance. I'm aware that Teresa isn't an easy opponent. The legend of someone who single-handedly stopped the Amsterdam outbreak wasn't for nothing. But that was against monsters. Have you ever fought against a human? Whoosh, Jinhyuk vanished. Quote ellipsis exclamation mark quote. Behind. Teresa turned her head. Clang, a heavy impact transmitted through the shield. The dagger scratched against the metal and disappeared. So fast, and these movements, bizarre and freakish. Clang clang clang. The relentless onslaught turned Teresa's complexion pale. She had thought she could hold on by focusing on defense. A grave mistake. At this rate, 5 minutes. No, not even 3 minutes would. At the exact moment she bit her lip, a regretful exclamation escaped Teresa's mouth. She misread the feint, resulting in a misstep. And Jinhyuk would not miss such an opening. Thwack, a gap deliberately left unfilled for fluid joint movement. The dagger pierced through an unprotected spot in the armor. Teresa staggered dramatically, blood spurting like a fountain from a severed artery. A fatal wound. Groaning, Teresa eventually collapsed and breathed her last. One is not enough. Brushing off the blood, Jinhyuk turned towards the trembling assault squad. He had verified through eyes of truth who they were. Click. Jinhyuk broke the gag of the man at the very front and removed his blindfold. The man, momentarily freed from bondage, burst into cheers. Rescue team. Thanks. I'm alive thanks to, Overcome with emotion, the man cut his sentence short. His face instantly twisted in horror. In contrast, Jinhyuk offered a thin smile. Hello. Long time no see. You damned fool. Chapter 29, The Fallen Corridor's Master 3. He was a player belonging to the Black Crow Guild. It was Park Hajin. No, that's impossible. Park Hajin's voice quivered violently. We meet here, what a coincidence. So, what brings you all this way? Jinhyuk smiled faintly and swiftly grasped Park Hajin's neck. It's obviously because. Here for a dungeon raid. That's right. You're spouting nonsense. Jinhyuk tightened his grip. Kuhuk, let's talk after you let go, please. I can't breathe. I'll keep it short, so just answer with yes or no. Are you the ones who killed the sentries and woke the guardian? What does that? Crack. Arg. Park Hajin twisted violently. Pressured by a thumb on his collarbone, he was met with excruciating pain. Yes, it was us. As expected. When he saw the wounds on the back of the sentries' necks, he was certain. The injuries were something only an assassin would inflict. And the presence of unnecessary assassins in this dungeon raid meant one thing. Park Hajin. Yes, no one but you. You came here with the plan to kill me, I assume. That's not. Park Hajin's pupils shook wildly. In this no-escape situation, a false denial wouldn't be believed. Yet, to affirm was to die. Too slow to answer. Jinhyuk's brow furrowed. At the same time, his mana-charged fingers dug into Park Hajin's shoulder. Crack, crunch. The chilling sound of a shattered collarbone. Arg. Stop, please. I'll talk. Just stop it. Park Hajin's body writhed even more violently than before. Wait a moment. Yes. It was our guild leader who forced me. Even though I said no, I couldn't help it. He threatened me. The guild leader of the Black Crow Guild. Are you talking about Shin Jiansu? I've seen him on TV. It was a segment called, Rising New Guilds or something. It was hard to forget the sight of him swaggering in a fancy suit and black sunglasses. Yes, Shin Jiansu. That bastard ordered it. Please believe me. Fine, I'll believe you. Jinhyuk released the pressure from his hand. Huff. Park Hajin exhaled a deep breath. Don't feel relieved. I have no intentions of letting you live. Thunk. A dagger dug deep into the flesh. Ku, huck. Park Hajin dazedly looked down at his chest. Right where his heart was located. I usually don't let those who target my life off easily. But thanks to you, things went smoothly, so consider this a favor. Be grateful. Jinhyuk coldly spoke and removed a ring from Park Hajin's finger. Bram's ring. Acquisition difficulty, A. Magic resistance, +10. Movement speed, +5%. Suppression of unique abilities, +20. It was a shame for such an item to be owned by a dead person. Jinhyuk slipped the ring onto his finger. Shack. Then, mercilessly he finished off the rest of the Black Crow Guild's assassins. Perhaps due to the effect of heartless. There wasn't a trace of mercy in Jinhyuk's actions. And he certainly wasn't stupid enough to show any humanity towards those who had targeted his life. Amidst the blood-soaked scene, Jinhyuk turned his head to look at Elise. Does this prove that I am a Ma-in? He had killed the vampires they most dreaded to face, Teresa, as well as their captives. Such acts were impossible if he intended to follow up on the implications. The act of sympathy also contributed a bit to softening the opposition's defenses. Fine, assuming I believe you. Elise stood up. Her long silver hair flowed down her shoulders. What means do you plan to use to grant us freedom? Great. Jinhyuk calmed his racing heart. Keep calm. Steady, without excitement. Now it was time to slowly reel in the fishing line after the bait was taken. I've prepared a 7-star spell. If Elise's soul can be sealed within an item, it could deceive the dungeon's barrier for a moment. A soul sealed. That's a new concept to me. It would be. This method only appears from the 40th floor upward in the tower. Honestly, it was mostly due to luck. The formula that could serve as the basic framework was the hardest part, getting the exact amount of mana needed to supply each circuit was not easy. Jinhyuk gathered mana in his fingertips. Whoom. A blue light formed at his fingertip. As if writing a letter, his fingers moved across the air. One word. Signaculum. And another one. Immortalitas Sanctuarium. He drew a hexagram with 6 words. As he injected different amounts of mana into each word, the blue light began to burn even more fiercely. Whoosh. The hexagram emitted an ominous aura. Oh ho. A hint of surprise showed on Elise's face. This can be used in such a way too. The onlooking vampires were stunned by the unfamiliar scene as they watched, slack-jawed. In the meantime, Jinhyuk placed Bram's ring in the center of the hexagram. The level condition level 1 of the caster, Kong Jinhyuk, is recognized. The incantation of the 7-star, soul transference, is activated. Upon obtaining the subject's consent, the spell will be completed. Only one soul can be taken out at a time. The cooldown for the incantation is 365 days. Only one person can leave the dungeon, and the next opportunity wouldn't come for another year. Time is inconsequential to vampires who have received the blessing of immortality. I'm not overly enthusiastic about accepting a spell I'm seeing for the first time. Elise's beautiful eyes squirmed, yet it was only for a brief moment. A smile curled around her previously tense lips. She found a loophole in the incantation. If you destroy the base hexagram of the incantation, you can cancel out the spell itself. Even if the man tried anything, they could always kill the human and break the seal with other vampires like Bellis around. Now she had her safety mechanism in place, though she still felt an uncomfortable tinge. Simply because things are suspicious doesn't mean I can pass up on this opportunity. She had been trapped for far too long. Thus, the temptation of freedom was too difficult to resist. If not now, maybe she would never be able to leave this underground palace. Her hesitation was short-lived. I accept. Proceed. As soon as Elise nodded, that very moment. Bram's ring absorbs the soul of the progenitor, Elise. A dazzling light wrapped around Elise's entire form. Asterisk. Ha ha. Jinhyuk retrieved the ring from within the hexagram. Thump, thump. His heart beat erratically. Success. It felt like all the hardships were finally paying off. Had even one thing gone wrong, it would have been impossible to seal Elise within. In the past, there had been countless failures too. Thanks to the variable named Teresa, things went much smoother than expected. Not as bad as I expected. I thought it would be confining, but it's unexpectedly comfortable. Elise's voice could be heard from the ring lying in his palm. It seemed the interior was to her liking. Lucky that. For the future home to be satisfactory. Just then. Ah! A feeble moan came from Teresa, who had collapsed on the floor. How did that woman? Wasn't she dead? The vampires bared their fangs in surprise. Clearly, they had confirmed her breath had stopped. Even checked for any magical response, but there was none. It was the undeniable certainty of death. Yet, why? Oh, I forgot to mention. That friend, she revives even if she dies. The blessing of the star. As long as she wasn't killed instantly, she could revive. Jinhyuk marveled as Teresa stood up. Wow, seriously. The more he looked, the better the ability seemed. It's no wonder they call her a holy vermin, right? You wretch, how dare you mock me? Elise roared, having realized she was tricked. Naturally, she was furious. However, Teresa, who had regained her senses, muttered with a complicated expression. So this was your plan. Because of the star's blessing, even as her heart stopped, she managed to witness everything. The wily rhetoric boiling down the progenitor. Finally sealing her away, everything. This must have been why he insisted on blind trust. There are many things I want to ask, but now is not the time, right? It's not the moment for a leisurely chat. Right. The time for conversation would come later. Because not everything was concluded yet. Teresa has activated the level 4 feat Sanctus. Teresa's sword moved from side to side. Pluck, pluck. The gags and blindfolds that restrained the people were removed. Gasps. Panting. People who had been deprived of their senses gasped for air. I lived. I'm alive. Wow. Cheers erupted from here and there. They all thought they were going to die, and now they had regained their freedom. You've arrived. Song Chionhwa gave Teresa a short nod. I'm glad I'm not too late. Teresa helped Song Chionhwa to his feet. How many people came in the rescue squad? At least 3 main attack groups from large guilds should have been deployed. That level of force was essential, at a minimum. But, excluding myself, just 1. The response from Teresa decimated all of Song Chionhwa's expectations. Asterisk. If you had pretended to be a Ma-in, at least you could have saved your life. Such a foolish human. The vampires ground their teeth in anger. They were ready to wipe out all humans, as they had been instructed to do if anything went awry. There was no need to hesitate further. Swoosh. Various blood potions began to dominate the surroundings. Droplets of blood amalgamated into a giant wave. The wave grew in height as if to engulf the entire palace. The sheer strength of the magic was enough to make the skin crawl. We're wrong. I thought I'd barely survived, but I don't want to die. They'd already been devastated once by the same skill. Tanks who could stand against large monsters were torn apart like paper. All types of dealer spells were nullified by higher-ranking magic. The memory of that nightmare persists. However, the wound had hardly healed before they were facing the same situation again. Song Chionhwa bit his lip with frustration. It ends here. Even with Teresa's arrival, it was useless. The vampires had 11 more of their kind than before. The disparity in force hadn't diminished at all. At that moment, level 13, Blood Wave, is activated. Quack 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 quack. A wave of blood surged forward. It was unstoppable. There was no escape. Quote ellipsis quote. Song Chionhwa closed his eyes. Others also hung their heads or covered their faces with their hands, awaiting the impending doom. But, quote ellipsis question mark quote. The expected impact of the wave was not felt. Nor was there any pain. Song Chionhwa cautiously opened his eyes. Then he saw. A man wearing a strange mask stood there. Whoosh. A giant wall of fire blocked the wave of blood. Not just barely holding it off. The moisture evaporated, and the droplets of blood gradually disappeared. As if to prove who wielded denser magic power. Who is he? I've never heard of a ranker with a mask, and using daggers. It must be someone new. But does that even make sense? A player capable of such powerful fire magic had gone unnoticed. Even as he watched, he couldn't quite believe it. That's why he had to ask. Who exactly is that person? To Song Chionhwa's question, a gentle smile rested on Teresa's lips. A person you must absolutely trust. Chapter 30, The Fallen Corridor's Master 4. How can a mere human? Bellis muttered in disbelief. But it was inevitable. He hadn't spared any magic power in his earlier attack, aiming to obliterate the humans in a single blow. Yet, how in the world could this man block it so easily? Jinhyuk shrugged his shoulders. You see, the skills you utilize and the fire attribute are, unfortunately, inherently incompatible. On top of that, the gap in stats and his adaptive capabilities effectively inverted the level difference between them. With these conditions met, it was undeniable. He would certainly lose. The moment Ellis was sealed, your chances of victory vanished. Indeed, it does seem difficult to win with magic, Bellis admitted, dispersing the magic power he had gathered. But if there are inherent incompatibilities as you say, then it would be a challenge for you to fend off close-ranged attacks with magic. Wouldn't it? In his right hand now shimmered a sword with a dark hue, a rapier favored by vampires. Furthermore, Bellis activates the level 9 technique, Dark Battle Chi. A black aura oozed along the blade. Sword Chi. And quite a high-quality one at that. Nothing beats this when dealing with opponents who dodge around like flies from a distance. He wasn't wrong. For a mage, closing the distance exponentially increased the risk. And with 12 of them attacking simultaneously, it was a solid strategy. Indeed, it was the orthodox approach. But who says that I am only strong in magic? Your unique skill, Grave of Swords, has been activated. In the eerie silence, the talent of a sword demon from a bygone era seeped into Jinhyuk's body. Change unfolded. Everything he saw and felt began to transform. Thump, thump, thump. His heart raced wildly. From the slightest twitch of a muscle to the flow of magic power. The world he saw through his mask had become entirely different from moments ago. This goes to show, the title of Sword Demon wasn't given to me for nothing. A grin curled the corners of Jinhyuk's mouth. Asterisk. What's this? Bellis tilted his head in confusion. Something had changed just now. It was difficult to articulate exactly what, but the atmosphere had completely shifted. A tremble. Slight trembling in the hands. Surely not. Is this fear? Me? Bellis gritted his teeth until they nearly shattered. It was ludicrous for him to be afraid of a single human. Such a scenario was neither possible nor permissible. Above all, he must shatter the seal confining that person. There was no time to waste. Bellis tightened his grip on the sword. No matter how desperately you resist, you will not be able to withstand my sword chi. A robust dark energy flared up. A sword chi renowned for its ultimate cutting power. Strike all at once. Remember, don't let him escape under any circumstance. I'll need to at least shred a limb or two to ease my wrath. The vampires formed a besieging network around Jinhyuk. Front, back, left, and right. There was no gap for even a single ant to escape. But Jinhyuk remained motionless in his place, responding not a whit, merely scanning his foes with a nonchalant expression. Sword Chi, is that all you have faith in? Don't be arrogant. No matter how agile you are, there's no escaping from here. Indeed, if it were all talk, it would seem like mere bluster. The situation was clear who held the advantage and who didn't. Then, he simply had to show them. Not with words, but with strength. Jinhyuk channeled magic power into his dagger. And then, Kurg, Kurg, Kurg. An eye-wateringly bright light flickered. How can this be? Bellis's eyes bulged as if they were about to burst. This was entirely different from the mere sword chi that adorned his blade. The dagger was completely enveloped, and nearly 1 meter of blue energy surged above it. Undoubtedly, this was an aura blade. To imbue a sword Jian with chi, it has to be at least this much, right? Jinhyuk lunged his dagger forward. A sharpness that seemed to slice the very air. Overwhelming power faced the vampires. Snap. He vanished in that instant. Hey, where did he go? Where is he? Tell me where. Damn it. Don't follow him with your eyes, detect his magic. Bellis shouted, but it was already too late. Gah. Blood gushed from the shoulder of a vampire on the periphery, their arm cleanly severed. Not even a vampire's regeneration could quickly recover from such a wound. One down. Jinhyuk's gaze darted to the next target. Eliminating them systematically, starting with the weakest. No matter how certain the victory, he would never let his guard down. Swish. The dagger traced a circle. Gawk. As a wind hole opened in the vampire's thigh, a brief scream erupted. Another one down. Stop at once. Ellis seemed to be shouting something. But he couldn't quite make it out, as he had tucked Brahm's ring deep into his pocket even before the fight had begun. Maintain formation. Don't be foolish and fall for the enemy's tactics. Bellis's throat was taut with strain. Tisk. Damn it. Finally, the vampires regained their composure. Filling the gaps left by the wounded, they reinforced their flank. Strike. 10 rapiers were unleashed towards Jinhyuk. At the moment of their clash. Boom, boom, boom. The rapiers shattered into dozens of pieces. Blades obliterated upon impact. As expected, Sword Chi could not withstand the sword force. It doesn't matter. Losing half is plausible as long as one strike succeeds. Sacrifice was inevitable. Bellis knew this better than anyone else. Whir. Whoosh. However, the rapiers sliced nothing but empty air. They couldn't even catch Jinhyuk's shadow. 30 seconds, 1 minute. As time passed, Bellis's face increasingly turned the color of ash. Even hurling oneself headlong to the point of risking life achieves nothing against this opponent. Amidst this, their numbers dwindled one by one. Unaware of when or how they had been hit. It was like fighting a ghost. Thud. Another fell. No more vampires stood beside him. Damn. Now, he couldn't grasp what was going on. Bellis felt a chill approach from behind. And that was the last thing he remembered. Asterisk. The fight was over. So utterly anticlimactic. Well, that term might be appropriate only for Jinhyuk as the protagonist. Those who had witnessed the whole affair were paralyzed by a thrill that wrapped around their entire bodies. Teresa. Song Chunwa stuttered as he began to speak. What had he just seen? Was this reality? The vampires of the Crimson Brigade, whom even a raid party couldn't touch, were swept away by a single person. Gulp. Song Chunwa swallowed dryly. Do you know who that man is? Quote ellipsis quote. Teresa did not answer. Instead, she glanced briefly at Jinhyuk. Wearing a mask meant. He didn't want to reveal his identity to the public. I ran into him by chance midway and we came together. Apart from telling me to trust him, he didn't share anything more specific. I see, ah. Song Chunwa, who had been nodding his head reluctantly, let out an exclamation. He had seen the masked Jinhyuk about to do something. Wait, please wait a moment. Song Chunwa rushed immediately towards Jinhyuk. What's the matter? Jinhyuk, who had been standing by the holy relic, turned around. My name is Song Chunwa, I led this raid party. I roughly heard that. The leader of a failed raid. A commander more feared than the enemy for his incompetence. If it were me, I'd be so ashamed I'd hide in a corner. What gall does he have to approach me? Forget it. People like him don't even realize what they've done wrong. Please take the wounded and leave the ruins. You've all been weakened substantially, so you'll need hydration and simple nutrition. Jinhyuk waved his hand, exasperated. Yet. Song Chunwa stayed put, looking troubled, without making a motion to leave. Before that, there's something I need to discuss regarding the holy relic. Really? Does he plan to claim rights over the holy relic here? Wow. This guy is even more impressive than I had assumed. If you're aware, all the items obtained during this raid belong to our Balhae guild. Jinhyuk interrupted Song Chunwa mid-sentence. You want the holy relic even though I saved your life? That's some novel rubbish he's spewing. So novel in fact that I'm beginning to look forward to what he'll say next. Seemingly stung, Song Chunwa quickly added. Instead, we will provide you with a different reward. Whether it's money or coins, we'll ensure you won't be disappointed. Compensation. This isn't working out. I didn't plan to go this far. But if he insists so much, then there's no choice. You don't need to do that. Just take it. Go ahead. Jinhyuk stepped aside. Are you sure that's okay? Of course. Just don't regret it, whatever the outcome. Just something I'm saying. Jinhyuk shrugged. Song Chunwa felt uneasy but shook the feeling off quickly. Why refuse when the holy relic was being offered? A wooden splinter lay on a wide flat rock. Merlin's staff. One of the 7 broken pieces, its value was no less despite being shattered. If used as a magical material, its potential is practically limitless. Song Chunwa's eyes were clouded with greed. If he could take it, he could somewhat compensate for the disgrace of the raid team having been taken prisoner. But the moment his hand touched the fragment. A burning sensation. It felt as if his hand was scorched by flames. Song Chunwa jumped, withdrawing his hand in shock. However, more startling than the reddened skin was the inverted cross emblem branded on his palm. What's this? What, you ask? It's a curse. This holy relic should have only been attainable by annihilating Ellis. Yet, with Ellis still alive and sealed, touching the holy relic obviously resulted in a curse. A curse? You mean I'm going to die? Will I die? It's not life-threatening. Just that. Alopecia. All the hair on your body will vanish without a trace. Put simply, he'd have to spend the rest of his life silky smooth. That can't be. Song Chunwa trembled as he touched his own hair. That's gotta hurt. Clumps of hair falling out suggest it won't be long now. See, I told you, you'd regret it. It's all moot now, though. No, no. Song Chunwa screamed and ran somewhere, presumably looking for a mirror, though not looking would be better for his mental health. Asterisk. That was mean of you. Teresa smiled with mixed emotions. He got what he deserved for reaching for what wasn't his to take. But, doesn't that mean you, Mr. Jinhyuk, have also given up on the holy relic? No, not at all. I know a way to handle the holy relic without falling victim to the curse. Blessing of the stars. If only one could harness divine power, a curse of this scale would be effortlessly bearable. Before I answer your question, Ms. Teresa, may I ask you one of my own? Of course. Do you acknowledge that you owe your life to me? Quote. Teresa looked intently into Jinhyuk's eyes. If not for Jinhyuk, none of the raid party would have survived to escape. Yes, thank you, I owe you my life. Teresa nodded. Requirements met. Successfully copied the unique ability, Blessing of the Stars SS. The copied skill is stored in the world's memory. Blessing of the Stars. Difficulty of acquisition, SS. Details. Only paladins can manage this divine power, allowing one to proceed with a second life unless struck by instant death. Cooldown 240 hours. With this, he had achieved his last objective in the ruins.